And guys, we want to move on from that one because I want to tie us into another topic here that I think is on the track that we're headed towards anyway. So, is an obstacle you referenced this a little bit, so I want to start with you again on this one. Is 1/6 collecting changing, and will Hot Toys need to adapt to those changes? Because I think like obstacle maybe you were hinting at, like with the existence of InArt, and like I said, when J&D comes in, probably this year sometime. If not, maybe next year, but I think probably this year in 2023 sometime, they're probably going to announce their first 1/6 figure would be my guess. And then, like I said, there's probably going to be other companies that come in the fold too. And I'm
We'll
just going to
probably be the
bring up
Joker a bit.
yeah, I know, right? I'm just going to bring up a general sort of Hot Toys bestsellers list here, just a sort of a background type deal for us. But is 1/6 collecting changing? Because optical, I think we're getting accustomed to paying higher prices. We're getting accustomed to going for premium, maybe even accustomed to less is more, considering, again, we don't want to overextend our budget and we're spending more on one thing than we would have spent on multiple things before. So I think there could be a shift in philosophy for people where they're buying less, but buying nicer. So I guess we're going to see how that shakes out and what people are willing to do with their collection. But what do you think, Optical? Do you see like sort of the winds changing? Will Hot Toys need to adapt to this? Maybe create a premium line, maybe make less C, D tier characters like Mantis, Nebula, stuff like that, and just focus on like the Iron Mans and Mandos? What do you think?
I think it changed, but I think Hot Toys kind of already did,
Mm.
kind of position themselves to change because you can see the prices going down. So they are making you think because if we are, I guess, referring to InArt, who's going to change the game. I guess it changed to some people, right? It's not for everyone, like you said, because we still have Star Wars figures that you won't consider S tier, but they're making them.
Mm-hmm.
But they are what Hot Toys did was, for example, that Anakin was for like 280, which is really good, right? All it needs is to have a rooted hair, and you'll be like, this is InArt. If it has rooted hair, you'll be like, oh man, this is InArt did Star Wars,
Right.
and this is 280. So this is where they kind of make you, for some people who has limited budget, make you blur the lines. We're gonna be like, all right, should I buy Aragorn or Anakin and something else? For if you really need to make that hard decision. So I think even with the Spider-Man, the one with the Tom Holland with a beautiful head sculpt with the purse as well. So that's 280 as well. So those two figures, you have them, and then you can position them as like, all right, would you like to have, you know, Aragorn or Anakin and Toby Maguire? I mean, that's not Toby, but Spider-Man. But
sure.
This is kind of like where you're gonna, okay, you have $500, you can only spend it on once. Which one would you get? So I think in that sense, they kind of did. Would they need to step up? I don't think they need to have a premium line because now they are admitting that these guys are not premium, and yet you're still charging 280. So you're gonna be like kind of like, yeah, they kind of do suck, but you know what? It's good enough. I don't think they should do that. They have the DX line, which is arguably has more things that kind of supposed to be the premium line, but I don't think they need to compete with InArt. I think InArt needs to be by themselves. Like Honda's competing with BMW. Like, no, Honda needs to exist and BMW needs to exist, or whatever the car is. It is changing because now we have more options, and options are always beautiful. So if you want to have less and just have a more curated, collections of just nice things, that's for you. If you want to have more, let's say you're a more Star Wars fan that you need more troopers and all that stuff. The good news is there's no right or wrong way of collecting. It's your preference. So, but the fact that they all exist and InArt is I love the fact that InArt is doing things that Hot Toys wouldn't even touch. That's a gamble in their part. And I love the fact that they're doing that. And they are, putting up this effort to do that, because Hot Toys feels like they're always doing the safe ones, the Star Wars, the Marvel, the DC. Yet InArt is tackling, the Lord of the Rings, which no one would touch but Asmus. So it is changing in a sense that we have more options now. If I was Hot Toys, I would not need to adapt too much because I do have the IPs that people wanted. But I would kind of step up the game on the premium ones, like the Anakins, because you'd have no choice. But I would be like, hey, you know what? It's closer. It's closer to InArt. We might not be InArt, but I'll make you think to, hey, would you rather spend your 500 here or there? Because I don't think they need to be competition for both of them. They have two different products outside of the Batman now. That is the only overlapping product, and
Pennywise. Yeah. Right.
And Pennywise. But that's, other than that, I don't think they need to compete.
Yeah. Okay. Well, Kiko, what do you think, bro, about this? Do you think 1/6 is changing? Are we getting accustomed to spending more? Is Hot Toys going to need to adjust to these changes in the possible market? What do you think?
A couple things that I think are important to at least acknowledge, not just the product themselves, but the distribution and the acquisition of said product. That is the one I think is the most in flux, and we'll need to figure out how they adapt to that. It's the distribution model, because we still have no idea what's going on with Sideshow. Inart talked about, how they have to worry about regional distribution issues and regional licenses, and that's always going to be a tricky subject. And I think that more clarity would go a long way, so that we can know kind of what to expect. Yeah, they put out the, hey, we acquired these 15 new licenses. Okay, what does that mean for me, essentially, other than hey, I might see this figure from this movie? So I feel like the distribution, the acquisition, and kind of the selection of figures is going to be evolving a little bit. And I would love, in a perfect world, there to be, U.S. distribution for InArt, actual U.S. distribution, not having to go through retailers. I would love for there to be a secret base, in North America. I think those would be great things as well. I think a lot of people would like that as well. But as far as the figures themselves, I don't know, like, what more you could be doing. Yeah, you can do the rooted hair, you can do more detailed head sculpts. That'll always continue to improve. As technology increases, art increases, the likenesses will always increase. That's fine. But what more could you do? Premium outfits, cool, that's fine. Like Optiwood said, maybe on certain characters, do like the rooted hair option as well. You're getting to the point to where there's not much more you can do, because if you start putting more stuff in the box, then it's just dead weight and wasted space, resources. People will be like, I don't want all that stuff. I go back to, and I feel like I've done a 180 on this a little bit. I was super hyped about the deluxe integrated suit Spider-Man I got with that big base. And I was like, oh, this is cool. Look at all these sweet pictures I can take. As soon as I finished taking up the pictures, I'm like, okay, where am I going to put this base? Yeah, this is cool, but now I can't put this figure in my display with these other figures because I don't have the space for it, essentially. So yeah, these bases are cool. And if you only get like a limited number of characters and you have, limited number of space, that works fine. But for me, I'm like, yeah, cool base, but now I can't really use it or anything like that. So I don't know if I want more stuff, in the box. That's because, especially when everyone's like, oh, look at all the stuff you get with a Spider-Man. You get 50 hands and 50 eyes and 50 accessories, a pizza box, a coffee cup. How many of those are you going to actually use? And I mean, even the number of hands, I was like, oh shit, Gilgamesh only came with 2 pairs of hands. Well, do I really want 15 pairs of expression hands or whatever?
Right.
I don't know, honestly. And maybe that's just me because I don't switch out my hands as often, but I feel like that's something to consider as well. It's certainly going to be interesting because right now, I mean, everyone's highly invested and there's no need to really change much, but I don't know. We'll see.
Well, I think, Kiko, the point I want to make to that, and I think you raised some really good ones. So the way I kind of view it is maybe what they might need to do is not put more in the box, but put more quality in the box. That's my point, I think. And that's kind of maybe what I'm thinking, like, because we got a lot of really good comments about here, like, even from Carlos, like a wireless charging Iron Man, something like that, right? You put him on the base, he lights up automatically. You flick the switch, he lights up, right? We don't have to put the batteries in. A lightsaber USB, they're making improvements on that. Maybe a lightsaber somehow, some sort of innovation where you can put them on the base and the lightsaber lights up too, something like that, right?
That was a really good point that they brought. I keep going back to our interview that on Queen, is that I never thought through that. Is like, we're not ready to commit to light up features because if we have all these electronics and something goes wrong in them, you're ripping the figure apart to try to get it fixed. And I was like, you know what? I'd never thought about that because yeah, you can put all these coils and all that stuff's great, but what if it doesn't work? What if something goes wrong? And then you're having to send it back, overseas, to get fixed and stuff, which that's not going to happen. And so that's a great point as well.
Well, and it's also, Kiko, like, I think Carlos or someone else pointed out, like, instead of this Vader being leather, right? Make it leather. Like, say it's 500 at that point, I get it. But I think there'd be a lot of people, and you could have this version too that's pleather, right? And all for that one. But there'd be a lot of people out there that would line up to pay 500 for a real leather Vader, especially with how good this figure looks in totality. But you make it a leather figure and damn. Like, I think, again, there's some game changer things that can be done, I feel like. And again, we always talk about Hot Toys. We expect a decline optical. We expect a decline from final, from prototype, right? What if you didn't have to have that? What if you didn't have to have a significant one anyway, where you could pay for, say, a premium line where you have an artist who is going to deliver what you want? Maybe they don't, but there's a better chance, right? And they're advertising it that way. Like an artist, they just, maybe it's not JC, right? For JC, you'd pay a lot more. But someone that's like, okay, it's to be pretty damn close to the prototype because you're buying the premium line, right? That's what I'm thinking, Optical. Do you think that could be something that comes to fruition and still offer these too? I mean,
that's very dangerous for a business because you always, that's why Apple, you'd be like, oh, it's, incremental upgrade, because otherwise you won't buy an Apple every year, So as a business, you don't want to give it all, even though you're paying 500, because we're suckers, right? Like we already have a Vader. You got another Vader because the tunic is inside out or not in, because the tusk is different than the other.
Right.
I mean, at the end of the day, you got Vader, but would you do that if it's their 500 a pop? Right? Like, or this is where it happens earlier. You ask, it's like, oh, would you spend $500? Like in Hot Toys' mind, we'd rather sell you 4 Vaders than you buying 1 Vader for the rest of your life. Kind of like, so that's what Hot Toys mentality is. Can be like, hey, it was like, we're hurting ourselves if we just make it, indestructible and forever. Just like,
it's going to be in your coffin with you.
Right. I was like, hey, because I'm a business too. I need to sell stuff. And this is where, if you look at InArt, where would they go after these guys, right? Like, where would they go? It's like, what characters would they make? So this is, Hot Toys got it to a science where, hey, you got a Vader? Oh, we'll give you another Vader. We'll just change this. And you're going to be like, he already have an Iron Man, but this is metal. I was like, now it's like, this is USB. Now you just upgraded your Iron Man twice because it has USB. And as a business, that's how you kind of like stay in the business. Kind of like, hey, we're giving you little bits of pieces here and eventually. But if you do that, I mean, it's good for us collectors. I would love to have that, but I don't think it's going to happen, just for that simple fact.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I guess we'll see over time, bro. It's going to be interesting, man. I don't know what to believe anymore, but we're going to find out. Guys,